today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about digital sedation and why men are more prone to this. Anything that you see on a screen that isn't a contact with another human being directly is designed to enroll you in doing more. Guys and ladies, the 29% of you who are the prime wage earners, productivity isn't just about making money. We all need to wake up that this stuff is highly addictive. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship, and I am your host, Rich Heller. And today we're going to talk about digital sedation. And what does that mean, and why are men more prone to this, though women certainly are capable and enjoying themselves through digital sedation? Why does he spend more time on his phone than me? Is an excellent question. And before I answer the question, let me just share personally. My wife and I have kind of an ongoing battle about phones. Neither of us likes to get called out on our phoniness, I'm going to call it. We both have things we like to do on our phones when we're in the car with each other in particular. And when we're in the car with each other, it seems like, well, one of us is driving, so the other one should be able to do something on their phone. Or even worse, one of us is driving and is stopped at a light and should be able to do something with their phone. And we kind of have a back and forth about this. And I have to ask myself, how can someone who sees couples obliterate themselves through digital sedation have stuff about this? And the only answer I can come up with is that I am, like so many other people, addicted to screens in particular, phones as a representation of that. And I'm going to give you an illustration of that. Here's a phone, and this is how far gone I am. I feel like I have to have a bigger screen too. But the question really isn't how big is your screen? The question is, how do you use it? That sounds familiar. It's not the meat, it's the motion. Isn't that the original? How big is your screen, or how do you use it? And I think what my wife and I are both experiencing, and that's what we're addressing here, because I think so many of us are experiencing our unconscious minds somehow keep turning to these things at sometimes inappropriate moments. True confessions, I could think of at least 3 different ways to use my phone rather than do this podcast. I wanted a distraction. So, Joanne's question is, why does he spend more time on his phone than with me? Screens are constantly available. They are immediately affirming or generate an immediate emotional response. They are an immediate escape or distraction from the now. And Joanne, my wife and I actually have a really good marriage, though it may not sound like it from the way we drive together. We have a really good marriage. We communicate really well with each other. And even under the best of circumstances, screens can be a distraction and even a point of conflict. The challenge here for all of us is making conscious choices about how we use our screens. And I'm going to confess here, even though I'm sitting here preaching conscious choices of screens, I'm tempted. There's a part of me that wants to look at my phone at every stop sign, every stoplight, every pause in between tasks. There's a part of me that when I'm working on something on my computer or when I'm reading or studying for something, if I hear that ping, I much rather go to that than do this thing that's more challenging and has less instant gratification. Imagine for a second if it's easy when you're reading or doing something on your computer and you get a pop-up or you hear the sound of text coming in, or you hear the sound of an email coming in, or maybe even somebody calls you and immediately you reach for that because the discomfort of whatever you're working on or wrestling with in your computer or reading or studying for not a lot uncomfortable, but uncomfortable enough so that you willing to escape like that. Once you have that kind of conditioning, now imagine you're with your partner and they push on you a little in a way that feels uncomfortable, that's far more confrontational and threatening than making yourself study. So if you're all day in the habit of allowing yourself to be distracted, then of course what you're going to do when the possibility of disturbing your equanimity between your ears comes up, the thing you're conditioned to turn to is a screen or your phone. The other side of this is screens are not only an escape from the uncomfortable, but men in particular, and more women, Joanne, maybe you have this going on too, are using productivity or an obsession with productivity to feel good about themselves, to look admirable. In fact, it might be much simpler to say, I can't talk to you right now, I'm working, than to escape into your phone to answer text messages. Or maybe you are escaping into your phone, answering text messages for work, or escaping to your phone on YouTube, which is not for work, but you might say you're working when you're doing that. It's much more admirable to do that. It's much more in tune with the wider culture to do that, but it's still an escape. And men are particularly conditioned to be working and productive, and women are catching up fast. 29% of all households have women as higher income earners. Women are catching up fast, but still it's more of a guy thing. So Joanne, what he's saying to you when he's on his phone is, I'm busy. I'm so valuable. I'm busy. I got to take care of this because I'm taking care of us. His worth is tied to the tasks. And underneath it is the dopamine hit of, oh, so-and-so texted me, took care of it. Oh, email received, took care of it. Oh, got this thing done, check, took care of it. And then at the end of all that, right, the end of the day, do we have to talk about this now? Can't we just watch something? Listen to some music, watch something on YouTube, play a game. I'd like to go play a video game with my friends. I'm connected to my friends. And since high school, we've all been playing the same game together. Kill, 57. I don't know any of the games. So I'm just making stuff up. And so, Joanne, that's how that phone screen time starts to dominate everything. It becomes the source of work fulfillment. It becomes the source of make-believe connection with others, because let's be honest, being connected to someone on a screen is not the same as being connected to them in person. You're watching me on a YouTube video is not the same as meeting with me and working with me. It's very, very, very different. In fact, working with me on Zoom is not the same as working with me on listening to me on YouTube, and working with me in person is not the same as working with me on Zoom. Though many people work with me on Zoom because it's easy, it's convenient, and it provides a level of interaction that's effective for what they're coming to me for. Lawrence says, isn't it good that I'm always getting things done? And yeah, Lawrence, you're just proving my point to Joanne. You are socialized to equate action with worth, getting things done. And if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, Lawrence, then you know that it isn't just about getting things done. It's about the feeling that we're bringing to the table. It's about not just the time we spend with our family, but how present are we? And if we're always checking our devices in some way, shape, or form, how present are we is the question I'm posing. Work plus tech may give you predictable structure, and that may feel much more desirable over relationships which feel unpredictable. The average U.S. male spends 4.5 hours a day on leisure screen time outside of work, says a study in 2022. That's in addition to work, 4.5 hours a day. Think about it. There are 24 hours in a day. We spend an average of 8 hours involved with bed, if not actually sleeping, right? A lot of people sleep 6 hours, but it takes them a while to go to bed. It takes them a while to get up. Out of the 24, that leaves 16. Out of 16, 4.5 are going to screens. So that leaves 11.5 hours. Out of the 11.5, 8 are presumably going to work. So that leaves 3.5 hours for whatever else. Oh, but there's probably some travel time for work. So let's call it 2.5 hours. That's 2.5 hours. Oh, but there's going to be some time brushing your teeth, shaving, getting dressed. So call it 3 hours. Oh, but guess what? There's going to be some gym time. How much time do you actually have left for your family after all of that? 4.5 hours is a big chunk of time, guys. So I really want you to, I want you to listen to what I'm laying down here. There's 16 hours in a day. And if you're spending 4.5 out of them, you're spending more than 25% of your time on non-work related screen time. That's a lot of time. That's a big commitment. That's enough time to study for a new career. I want you to get with this. Screens have become the socially acceptable drug of choice. And they're socially acceptable drug of choice because we're mostly on the cusp of recognizing that it is a drug. All those guys and gals in Silicon Valley, they're very cautious about how they use their screens. They have contracts with their babysitters to make sure that their children are not exposed to screens prematurely, because here's what they know about screens. They know that it impacts the development of the brain. So if you've got children who are spending time on screens, it's literally impeding the development of parts of the brain, particularly the parts of the brain that are involved in rational thinking and decision making. They know that screens are highly addictive, and they're afraid that their children might spend 2, 3, 4.5 hours a day on screens, not doing schoolwork, not spending time with family, not spending time with friends. They know it's a drug because they designed it that way. Anything that you see on a screen that isn't a contact with another human being directly is designed to enroll you in doing more. I remember the first time that I got into TikTok. I no longer have TikTok on my phone, by the way. The first time I got into TikTok, I sat down and I looked at it, and 45 minutes later, I was still sitting there. It was during the pandemic. 45 minutes later, I was still sitting there, and I looked at the time and I went, oh my God, what happened here? We all need to wake up that this stuff is highly addictive. It's designed to hook us. It's designed to keep us. It's designed to give us short-term hits of dopamine or quick jolts of fear, because that excites us as well. It's designed to excite our neurology, our body, our emotions, and keep our attention. And because they've been around for a long time, they've gotten really good at it. But we have not gotten so good at it. Lois says, why do I feel like I'm competing with this phone for attention? Partners like Lois often feel invisible. Intimacy erodes. Or like my own wife, maybe Lois, you're turning to screens yourself. Maybe you're having a little, bickering match about screens because you haven't maintained clear boundaries around them. We have boundaries around screens. We just do a crappy job maintaining them sometimes. Maybe you also have fallen into the productivity obsession. Maybe you've got your kids on screens. I was in Costco this morning, and I was going around this lady, and she had what looked like a 1-year-old, maybe, 1.5 to 2-year-old sitting in the shopping cart. And the 2-year-old was holding the phone, watching something. And I said to her, oh, what a beautiful child, so sweet. And I wanted to say to her, do you know what you're doing to that child's mind? We now indoctrinate our children we give them screens to keep them busy. And then we're surprised when our partners use screens to keep busy. We give kids screens so that they don't get upset and don't make noise. And then we're surprised when our partners do the same thing. There's a stat that couples where one partner overuses tech report 30% lower relationship satisfaction. And if there's lower satisfaction, if there's less caring communication, that means like face-to-face words, then there's more emotional disconnection. There's more distrust, less safety, less intimacy. And you creep into roommate syndrome. You become parallel parents living in the same house. Joe says, I tell myself I'm working for them. Why does she feel neglected? And Joe, I suspect that you're probably a guy who does a lot of work at home, like myself. You've got a home office that you work in, keep super busy. You probably don't like to be disturbed when you're in the home office. I'm doing this for us is one of the prime rationalizations for being absent even when you're present. And Joe, I am not telling you you're wrong to work, and I'm not telling you you're wrong to make an income because I'm doing the same thing. What I'm telling you, Joe, is busyness all the time or the bulk of the time prevents emotional risk taking. It prevents vulnerability, and it's a great way to avoid conflict. It's a great way to say, oh, you know what? I can't talk about this right now. I need to go to work. How many times have you said that? How many times have you said, I just can't handle this right now. Let's talk about it tomorrow and never come back to it. This culture of being always on is really a cover for avoiding our deeper feelings. Being always on so that we can have a sense of greater worth through what we've accomplished in the world, as opposed to finding our worth. Our worthiness is the path not only to becoming roommates, it's the path to losing your sense of self. It's the path to losing leadership in your own life. And I promise you, let me testify that when you lose leadership in your own life, everyone suffers, including you. And you will hit a bottom with it. And if you're struggling with this, I encourage you to reach out. Go to richinrelationship.com, join our relationship group. It's free. You'll get a whole bunch of resources and a free consult. I'll help you figure out what the next steps are, whatever they may be. Achievement always feels safer than intimacy. Why is that? Why does achievement feel safer than intimacy? You would think intimacy would be the juiciest, most wonderful thing in the world. Intimacy is the juiciest, most wonderful thing in the world. But it's scary. Because in order to be intimate, you've got to be open. In order to be intimate, you've got to show all of who you are. In order to be intimate, you need to be vulnerable. And vulnerable means you might possibly feel some hurt. You might have to express some sadness. You might even feel alone if you're vulnerable. You make yourself vulnerable, you say, hey, I'm here. And they go, I'm busy. And you feel hurt. Maybe that's happened enough so that you start to escape down your own rabbit hole. Vulnerable is risky. Work has its own reward. But the risk of work all the time, of business all the time, is you can lose yourself and everything you have in it. How do I get him to put the phone down without nagging, says Linda? We've talked about this stuff 100 times. I think the first thing is, before I give you actual strategies, the first thing is you need to go to him and say, I love you. I so appreciate how hard you work for our family. And I miss you. You go to him and say, you remember when we were in love? Before we had the kids and all these responsibilities? I know we can't go back to that, but I think we can recapture moments of that. I think we can go back to appreciating each other, having some space for each other. I want to work towards that with you. What do you say? Right? The first step is for you to be vulnerable and say, let's make a decision together to have some mature romance. That's like the next step from being in love. Mature romance. Mature romance is where you go back to that feeling of dating and being playful with each other. But, from where you are, it's going to take some work. And to do that, you might want to set some boundaries around tech. Because remember, this is an addiction. Seriously, it's an addiction. And even a small addiction takes time to get off of. If you've ever been addicted to caffeine, if you've had like 3, I just rolled my caffeine consumption back. If you roll it back from 3 or 4 cups a day and you want to get it down to 1 or none, you're going to go through some discomfort. You might even get a little headachy. It's going to be the same with this. You're going to establish there are going to be some tech-free zones. Hey, while we're in the bedroom together, from the hours of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., no phones unless it's an emergency. And define what an emergency is. You might want to put some boundaries on work. Hey, work starts at a certain time and ends at a certain time. You might want to put some boundaries on personal use of screens, whatever that is. Hey, you know what? You can use personal screens as much as you want, but from once we put the kids to bed at 8 o'clock, I'd like to sit down and just talk to you about what's going on with them, what's going on with me, what's going on with you for a half hour or 45 minutes. What do you say? So put some boundaries around when to not use screens and add in what you might be doing instead. And I would suggest that you, no matter what, have a 10-minute check-in with each other. It's taken us a long time, but my wife and I now, we have coffee together in the morning. And how are you doing today? What do you got in front of you? What time are you going to be home? Hey, how do you want to handle dinner tonight? Am I cooking or are you? Are we going out? What's the deal? And then in the evening, all right, let's download whatever we still have in the back of our mind from work so that we can really be with each other. This is what happened. This is so good. I got to share this. This is so bad. Okay, I'm done. Now you. Okay, this was so good. This was so bad. Okay, now let's just hang out. And I'm going to tell you that for us, the just hang out part was the hard part. We were great at finishing and downloading, but then we'd be like, oh, you start, right? And it's almost like you forget how to be friends. But I promise you that you can learn how to be friends again. I mean, isn't that really what we're talking about here? We've kind of forgotten how to be friends because we've filled that space with other things. Guys and ladies, the 29% of you who are the prime wage earners, productivity isn't just about making money. Productivity isn't just about getting things done at the home. My favorite escape is to work on the house because I can see an immediate result and I can control that. Productivity is also about time with one another, time with family. I talked to a former client today who was telling me that what he used to spend a lot of time at home watching football. No, it wasn't football. Excuse me. It was hockey. He used to spend a lot of time home watching hockey, and he realized it was taking a huge amount of time. So first what he started doing was he started recording the hockey games, and then he'd fast forward through them. And then he realized he could just watch highlight reels. And then he realized he was still interested. So when his team got into the playoffs, or actually his team were Stanley Cup contenders, he would spend buku bucks and take all his kids to the playoffs with him. So instead of investing his time watching the whole game week after week after week, or games, multiple games, he kind of kept track of what was happening. And then when it came time for the grand finale, instead of him staying at home and having an emotional high or emotional low on his own, he shared it with his family. And it cost a lot of money, but it built memorable experiences, right? This is where we want to be, my friends, right? It's taking, instead of sitting at home, watching sports by ourselves, going, leave me alone, I'm watching the game. We want to start taking our passion and finding a way to share it with one another. The most valuable investment you can make isn't in your phone. It isn't in work. It isn't your to-do list. It's in the people that you love. That's all I have for you today. Have an amazing day and a wonderful tomorrow. Or if you want to do it the other way, have a wonderful day and an amazing tomorrow. Either way, I want you to enjoy what's in front of you and enjoy what you have.